is a very sad story of what happened to this 24-year-old philosophy graduate of University of Uyo in Akwa Ibom State in Nigeria. Iniubong Umoren finished her education and she found herself in the job market when she decided to look for a job. So she went to her Twitter handle and posted that she needed a job, which was made on 27th of April 2021. Uduak Frank Akpan saw this post and replied to it that he had a job for Ini. They discussed about the location and what they needed for the interview, and the interview was slated for Thursday, the 29th of April 2021, just 2 days after Ini made this post. On this fateful day, Ini got ready for the interview. I guess she packed all her credentials, she wrote her application letter, and she set out for this undisclosed destination in the outskirts of Uyo without knowing that that might be the last time she's going to see the world. So when she got to the destination, she noticed that this was not an office, this was a residential building. And I guess she became uneasy, and Frank would have calmed her down, told her, don't worry, whether in the house or in the office, all you needed was to get a job. So Ini became relaxed. At the point that the interview was not forthcoming, Akpan decided to perform the reason why he brought Ini to that destination, just to have carnal knowledge of Ini, and he decided to rape Ini. And Ini will not have such because she was not at that destination for such, and nobody will have a carnal knowledge of her. Nobody will rape her without her knowledge. So a fight ensued between both of them because Ini had to defend herself from having Akpan raping her. So the fight was so intense that all Ini could do was to put a distress call across to one of her friends, and all the friend heard on the other side of the call was just a loud voice, and at a point the phone went dead and never came up again. I guess maybe Akpan collected the phone from her and switched it off. They continued the fight just to rape Ini, but that wouldn't happen, and all Akpan could do was to grab a very sharp object, hit Ini in the head, and Ini died on the spot. Akpan dragged Ini to the father's compound, dug a shallow grave, buried Ini there, covered it, and decided to run. A journalist that made an investigation said immediately Akpan killed Ini, he put a call to a staff of Niger Delta Civil Service by name Kufre Effiong. They discussed something, and later in the day, Akpan and Kufre met at Davok Suite on number 58G Ewet Housing Estate. We don't know what they discussed, we don't know what he told the guy, but we just learned that they discussed, and after that, Akpan ran to Oron. At this point, the search for Ini had been intensified because Ini's line was no longer going and Ini was nowhere to be found. Every social media handle was just hashtag find Iniubong Umoren. Her line was not going. The police were invited to find out what happened to this lady that just screamed on the phone and the phone went dead and they never heard anything of her. So I guess that Ini's number was analyzed to find out where she made the last call. Where was the point where the call she made to her friend, where was it made? And I guess they got the location and they set out to that location to find out what happened to Ini. Who was Ini with when she made the call? Or what happened to Ini's phone? They needed to find either Ini, the person that Ini was when she made the call, or Ini's phone. So when they got there, they found out it was Akpan's house, but Akpan was nowhere to be found because he had already run to Oron to hide. So the search for Ini became intensified. Everybody was just like trying to find Ini. Now they knew where Ini phone rang the last time, so they were actually looking for Akpan. So when Akpan knew that Oron was not safe for him because everybody were talking about how do we find Akpan to produce Ini, Akpan ran from Oron and went to Uduak. At this point, every social media handle was to find Akpan or to find Ini. And on this day, they said the local government chairman found Akpan's cousin and told him what he heard about Akpan and the way people were looking for Akpan, and decided to ask the cousin to bring Akpan to him, for him to ask Akpan what he knew about the death of Ini. And a few days after, they brought Akpan to the local government chairman. He asked him questions and Akpan owned up to the case that yes, he killed Ini, he buried Ini, and the local government chairman had to hand Akpan over to the police. When Akpan got to the police still interrogated him. He owned up the case that he killed Ini, and actually took them to the shallow grave where he buried Ini, and Ini's corpse was exhumed. And at this point, it was made known that Iniubong was dead, that Akpan killed him. So they decided to arraign Akpan before the court. When Akpan still got to the court, yes, he said he killed Ini, but he did not rape Ini. Akpan was remanded in prison. He was in prison. His father, who is the deputy director of Federal Ministry of Health in Akwa Ibom, was also remanded in prison until the case was kept on being adjourned and adjourned. And in April 2022, when the case came up again, Akpan decided to change his case. He said that he never heard the name of Iniubong Umoren before, that the first time he heard the name was when he was served the court proceeding. That was the first time he heard the name, and also that he had not raped anybody in his life and he would never rape anyone. Everyone was surprised because in 2021, when Akpan was arrested, he said yes, he killed Ini, but he never raped Ini. And coming a year after, he's now denied that he never knew Ini. And they thought that maybe someone had told him not to admit to killing Ini, he should change it. And maybe he felt because they were highly connected. Because they said that the Davok suite where he met Kufri is owned by Akwa Ibom State Governor. So I feel Akpan is well connected. So he's trying to change the case that he didn't know anything about Iniubong Umoren will save him. But after saying this, he was remanded in prison until the next adjourned date. And on August the 1st, the year 2022, the case came up again when Akpan was found guilty of killing Iniubong Umoren, and he was sentenced to death by hanging. When this case was served to Akpan, maybe Akpan thought the judge was joking, and the question he asked the judge was, what about all the assassination going on in Nigeria? Why are they not getting sentenced? Why will he just be the only one being sentenced to death for killing just one person, whereas they have just thousands of murder and assassination going on in Nigeria? But as far as we know, he killed Inu Umoren and he has been sentenced to death by hanging. And at this point, what I have to say is that there are a lot of women outside that you can get in a very cheap price, even without even talking. Being a son of an influential person in the society, every lady should be at your beck and call. Why must you go to this social media handle to lure an unsuspecting victim to your place and kill her? Because when the police got Frank, he took them to where he buried Ini in a very shallow grave. And according to news that was released, they had so many shallow graves there, and two other bodies were exhumed from the same compound. So, which means Ini's case was not the first person, but maybe that was his Waterloo. He met his end where he killed Ini. He has been doing it. Why must you try to rape someone, a lady, without her consent? You can get any lady you want. And now he killed Ini. His father's position or anybody cannot even save him because he is highly connected. But they couldn't save him because the law in Nigeria is working. We want to thank all those that contributed to the success of this case. We thank the Uduak local government chairman for handing over Frank to the police, and we thank the judge that made sure that Ini got the justice she deserved. Do not forget to like our page, follow our page, stay subscribed so whenever we upload a new video, you'll be among the first to get the notification.